And you are listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, revolution.radio. This is Planet Collingwood Open Roundtable. My name is Monty Dean. Hello. Big thank you to Tony and the guys for the Y-Files, the previous roundtable. If you enjoyed the last 2 hours, please go to the websites. Well, one's enough, but there is two. freedomslips.com, revolution.radio, and donate what you can because we are listener supported. We are I believe, the longest crowdfunding radio station on the planet today. And if I'm wrong, I don't care. We're in our 9th year, so we're not going away. There's Studio A and Studio B. Stay on Studio A because that's where you are and that's why you're listening. And once you're at the website, go into, you can become part of the archives as well as buying swag, merch, clothing, onesies, hats, cups, key rings, all manner of things to walk around proud and get people to say, what's that? And then once you've done that, pop into the chat room with like-minded, like-hearted, and just liked people. At the moment, I can see is SJ up, Omega, Lego, Logus. I always get that wrong. But, you know, it's 6 o'clock in the evening here in Melbourne, Victoria. It's 2 a.m. on the east coast of the United States. Yeah, it's an open roundtable, and I've been joined by the wonderful Bruce MacDonald, our correspondent in Costa Rica. I think I got that. He's near the equator, so he's closer to the sun, technically, one would think. And I'm sure we've got lots of things to talk about. So let's just start with, g'day, Bruce. How you going?
Not too bad. Yourself?
I'm okay. I started my NICE program today, which is a government course in micro business management, and I'm starting my own company, and I'm going to try and earn money and stop getting government benefits.
Oh, congratulations, man.
Thank you. Basically, I'm doing this. So
you're taking a broadcasting course?
No, it's just business element of it because I think I've got everything else down. And so for me, anyway, the block was the pressure of looking for work and earning money as well as doing a podcast / YouTube channel. So that's basically where I'm at the moment. And so I'm learning the business side of things, and we'll go from there. Cool. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, I think the key to life is to just keep trying, right? And sooner or later, you know, something's going to connect for you if you keep trying. That's my hope with books, anyways.
Yeah, well, I figured out what am I good at, and it's this. So I'll be able to just do wonderful things with doing YouTube stuff as well as the podcast, and you're on a list actually. So you'll be contacted when I'm ready because I know you've got merchandising coming out. You've completed your book. There you are. See,
yeah, it's out.
Time flies.
EPUB, Mobi, paperback 6x9, and got a hardback on as well. So it was a fun project. I shouldn't say fun. There's a lot of bad dreams, and it was a weird experience, but I learned a lot.
Okay, fair enough. Well, yeah, that sounds like the perfect project then, where you sort of finish it, turn around, and go, I know what you mean by fun, but it was a wonderful experience.
You know that expression you just used a few minutes ago, micro business?
Yep.
I call books like Stardust Ranch a micro incarnation.
Oh, you're nice. We've been joined by the wonderful Viking. Viking, are you there?
I'm here. How's it going, guys?
Good. For those people that know I'm in Australia, I'm nowhere near the fires. We've only had smoke. And if you look at that NASA 3D map of Australia, according to that, my house should be on fire. But NASA stands for Never a Straight Answer. We can talk about fires, but also some other interesting stuff is happening globally. And we've been joined by HiJacker. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. How am I coming through?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
So it looks like we averted World War III. I mean, we got.
Keep trying. You'll make it happen.
Well, it's actually. Well, I'm going to start. So, like, we don't know exactly what's happening behind the curtain. Not to dismiss what you're saying. Don't get me wrong.
No. We do no, Monty Dean. We do know. We do know the Iranians did not target those missiles to kill Americans. They made sure that they fell wide and long and short. That's what we know.
So was it just a show of force for the mainstream media, if I can use that term?
Islamic pride. They had to do
Face
this.
saving.
Right.
It's
yeah,
like
that's right.
Chinese, classic Chinese face saving.
Yeah, so they look like
you're 12 years old and you're being tormented by a bully, and you tell your friends you're going to stand up to him, so you sneak in his backyard at night and let the air out of the back tire of his bicycle, and you got even. That's it.
Yeah. It's basically on the world stage, and there's a large backstage, but on the world stage, like, look, we have done something to blah 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 blah, and yeah. Interesting enough, if I can throw into the mix a little bit early, are you aware about the Ukrainian aircraft that crashed at Tehran?
Yeah. I saw just one line about that. It was a comment by one of my friends on Facebook, and I scrolled all through Facebook. I couldn't see a story posted. Can you give us the details?
All I know is that it had technical difficulties, which is code for whatever. It took off and it didn't get that far, like maybe 500 meters, and 176 people have been killed. And so
183.
Oh, 83. Yeah, well, a lot.
Yeah.
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 I can
it crashed.
I can
it burned. Right. And so we don't know exactly what that was. But we do know what happened tonight. And tonight, the deep state lost really, really bad. Supposedly, President Trump was supposed to, he was supposed to come on the air, talk to the American people, but he did not. He punted. He says, look, we're going to assess everything on Fox News. It didn't matter if it was Rubio, Graham, a couple others, senators. They basically say this was good enough, basically, that no Americans were killed, and so we got a break. It looks like we got a reset, basically. Go ahead.
Well, if I can step into it's not woo-woo, but conspiracy-esque. It seems to be something, because I know HiJacker, you've probably got more data at your fingertips. There seems to be some jostling behind the curtain type thing where it's Trump killed him. I'm going very Fisher Price, like very simple. Trump killed him, and then the half of Iran is upset, and they've done this strike back because to save face, as Bruce said, and as well as yourself. And so it'd be interesting to see.
Right. The Iranian prime minister basically tweeted after the two waves of strikes. It was actually 13 ballistic missiles, very occultic. 5 of them didn't go off or something, whatever. But anyways, so this Iranian prime minister said 13 missiles were good enough. We're not going to fire any more. We don't want retaliation. We don't want escalation. We don't want war. And so he basically said, in the name of Kusami, or whatever the general's name is, we've avenged his blood, and that's it. They actually fired on Iraqi military bases, 3 of them, not American, and so it was very measured, very calculated. I have to give it off to the Iranians. I mean, if President Trump strikes them tomorrow with like devastating blows, we're going to find out who the real ghouls are. And so I have to give it to the Iranians. They actually basically brokered out a major, at least a regional, if not a worldwide civil war. And so that's the way it is now. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if the Iranians brokered it or Putin brokered it. Putin, China is basically running around. The only people that are So here you have the elite National Guard is what's being funded by the deep state. They're the ones that's pulling off all these campaigns and actions. I don't believe the Iranian parliament or the government or the people have anything to do with it. That's my take on it. Plus, during this 3-day burial wake, whatever, they got stampeded and 68 people died. Then they had to offer food to get people to come out to that. It wasn't like all of a sudden 30,000 people showed up. I'm sure 1,000 people were paid to go out and gather people, and there was free food. So there really isn't the sentiment that's being put across by the fake media here as
no Viking. Wait a minute, Viking. Millions, tens of millions of people showed up in all of the cities of Iran. No question about it. This guy was beloved.
They don't like the guy. No, he wasn't.
No. The photos that I saw.
It's information. May I?
Oh, if we may, let Viking finish his thought and then Bruce follow up.
Go ahead. I'm done.
Okay, fair enough. Bruce, he's finished
his
thought.
I can tell you, we have a large Iranian community in Toronto, and they arranged a kind of a flash, not a protest, whatever the opposite of a protest was, but there were a group of several hundred Iranians in downtown Toronto at the City Hall with signs celebrating the guy's death. There's a huge difference between the brainwashed Iranian living inside the borders of Iran, looking for some kind of check mark on their social credit because they have that kind of thing. You got to understand, these Islamic countries have it. They don't have it electronically and technologically the way China has, but you can't take something like people showing up for this doofus's funeral to look at how the Iranian expats behave. Iranian expat groups all around the world are going on news shows and writing into their newspapers and saying, look, this guy was a son of a bitch. He ran rape squads, torture squads. He's a diehard Sharia literalist. And there's a real fight going on inside Iran between forces that want to join the world and forces that want to keep it under the burqa, right? So, but with that said, let's be honest about really what's going on here. It's two militias having a beef. It's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Israeli Revolutionary Guard Corps in the form of the U.S. military. That's what it is, right? Nobody gives a shit. Russia doesn't give a shit. China, nobody gives a shit. The only reason Americans are involved is because there is such a powerful money and political lobby in the Jewish community in the United States. That's it.
Bruce, I've got a question for you to help follow on. I saw footage of the Iraqi parliament screaming out, "America, get out," or "Death to America." I'm wondering if they'll change now because their bases have been attacked with the US military being there, as well as, just very quickly as a sidestep, a lot of the woke left were protesting Trump for killing him, and they were supporting Iran, and then Iran did this. So everyone looks like an idiot now.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's hard to speak publicly and look credible 24 hours later with the rapidity of events going on in the world. Now, I mean, there's so much going on. You can barely keep it going on in your head. I mean, they just impeached this guy in the House 3 weeks ago. I kind of forgot about that already. It's... Well,
Yeah, well, sorry to interrupt. The lower house or Congress said, yeah, let's impeach him. Pelosi still hasn't handed over the forms to the upper house. Yeah. And it's like, well, did she get, be careful what you wish for? And it's like, oh, crap. And like, I've seen American citizens, oh, he's impeached, he should be out of the White House. And it's like, that's not how it works. They actually have to hand in the forms to start the impeachment process. They've only gone, let's impeach him. Oh, yeah, okay, let's have a vote.
I think the average grade 8 civics class understands how it works better than the average tenured federal politico in the United States now. You got crazy Maxine Water habitually referring to Trump on her Twitter feed as the disgraced and impeached president. He hasn't been impeached. You're de-educating people, you bloody moron. I mean, was it you who said Monty, that this political cycle will reach a point where it's like the Three Stooges? We're there now. I think you were quoting Andrew Bartzis or something.
I was. He said I was Three Stooges, but I sort of upgraded that to a Monty Python sketch because it's getting severely like Monty Python went fast, and then the joy of Monty Python is they went beyond fast, and that's what we're seeing, and it's happening so quick.
Yeah, well, let's lay over the oversoul. Other words, what is really going on here with the Iranian counterattack, the missiles, all the stuff we see? What's really going on here? What we're dealing with is a worldwide economic depression. Everybody knows. Everybody, the Chinese, the Russians, the Ukrainians, the Swedes. It doesn't matter who. We all know that an attack on Iran by the United States, a full out, basically world war or a regional war, is going to cause a worldwide economic depression. That is what checked everybody. It checked Russia. It checked everybody, and that's why the Iranians did what they did. They didn't want a straight up war with the United States because it was going to end up in a worldwide economic depression.
Yeah, usually war builds the. I'm going to set you up, Viking, to step in because of what you said earlier. Usually war produces money, and however, we're at the point where that will not happen. And Viking, you said that the Russians and the Chinese are sort of controlling Iran, or they're keeping them in check. And as HiJacker just said, Russia and China don't want the whole money system to collapse, and so I'm guessing that they've just slapped Iran and said stop that. Viking, what do you think?
Well, Trump immediately said that if they had any major incursion, he had 52 targets, which are all the oil wells, uranium plants, and this is Russia and China has spent billions of dollars developing the oil wells. They're not going to let those oil wells go down. And Russia has a pipeline of natural gas. This is where there was no contest. There wasn't even the fact that World War III came up is absolutely ludicrous. Because first of all, it takes multiple countries. It takes multiple countries to have a world war, not two people having a hissy fit. This was a conflict that came and went. No chance of anything happening because it would never have been troops on the ground. It would have been drone strikes and B-52 bombers, and that would have been it. Their entire infrastructure would have collapsed, and they know that.
Bruce.
Well, a bit of a correction there, Viking. The commercial and military targets were not what Trump cited. He said cultural and heritage sites. And then he got contradicted by the head of the armed forces and said, no, we're going to stick to the conventions of war. And if we wage war, we're going to wage lawful war, which means cultural and heritage sites are not designated targets, military targets. Trump went all biblical on them. I will smite you, so to speak. And then he got corrected by his own military. But this is some kind of theater. They're just yanking our leg, man. This is all just some kind of theater. But at the root of it all is the Greater Israel Project, and I think my position on this is there's no point anymore in even talking about it, other than to point out that it exists and it's part of what's going on geopolitically, because it's not going to be stopped. There's no force on earth that can stop this now. I mean, they've been working at this so long. They've got so much money and influence and the ability to pull it off. So the Greater Israel Project is going to come about. The Third Temple is going to come about. They just go down that list in the Bible and check it off, and just check it off like you're packing a suitcase for a Cuba vacation. For those of you who can legally visit Cuba, like me and Monty. But and that's all this is. It's just the Greater Israel Project. That's all it is. So
Yeah,
So
no,
if
no,
I
Bruce,
would that would
Bruce, Bruce, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think basically what we saw tonight with the Iranian missiles basically missing, not killing anybody, this was all scripted out. Uh, they're actually to keep President Trump into power for the next 10 months. I thought the deep state was going to show up and crash everything, but because the Iranians did what they did, and you had the Iranian prime minister say, "This is it. We're not going to escalate. We don't want war," and so they basically tied off uh, that the deep state couldn't do anything else. So yeah, they're going to keep President Trump. He's right in with the Zionist. Looks like they're going to get him elected in 2020 now. Um, I couldn't even believe this. This was a turn of events. And so, yeah, I think you're right, Bruce, that we're going into a type of revelation, third temple, a complete Jewish um, control, so to speak. They're going to get their chance to rule the world, so to speak. Anyways,
some version of the geopolitical events detailed in Revelation that correlates to what's in Revelation. Some version of it has to happen, and the reason it has to happen is these Illuminati types are absolutely fastidious about keeping their word, literally keeping their word. But remember, it's like a satanic contract. They will follow the letter of the law, but defile the spirit of the law. So this is what you need to keep in mind when you're looking for all the pieces to line up. But because these Illuminati and black magic type characters have put so much time and energy into this, it's going to come about. Don't try and fight it. It's going to come about. They will be weak when they've realized it, because all of their energy has gone into realizing it. And once it's realized, very shortly after that, the problem will be able to be dealt with psychologically, psychically, spiritually, and physically.
I've got a comment and then a question, which leads into what you just said. The comment is, from my perspective, there's a certain group of people who I call fake Jews that are using the Jewish people as patsies to get what they want. As well, David Icke come out and said they're Frankist. I've forgotten the other one. Sabatine Frankists, or there's a small group and they're being used, which is interesting because Netanyahu has been put up on charges on corruption, and I think that's pushed back from the light side compared to the dark side. My question is, where I think that's part of the end game is to allow these fake Jews to be in control. And you sort of half answer the question of where they'll probably get their goal, but they won't be able to sustain it. Like, I don't see, like, if they do get into a seat of power controlling the world, how long will it last? Because it's a very small group of people in a population of there's 20 million Jews across the planet. You have 7 billion people going, no. So someone has said before that, like, if the New World Order got in charge, they'll only last 8 months because they'll just eat on themselves and collapse.
You know what? You know what? You know how voting takes place on this planet, though, Monty. It's 100 million goy votes are worth 1 Jewish vote, so they've got the numbers.
Well, yeah, on paper, but I'm just like a lot of people like for whatever reason, and I don't think, I think that's probably why they push the anti-Semitic thing so much. Is like, if you criticize Israel, you're instantly a Jew hater. It's like, well, I think there's Christians and Muslims in Israel as well, and I'm just attacking the government that seems to be not acting humanely. There's it's, and this is where that's part of their weaponry of, like, if you say Jew, you get labeled as an ist straight away. And the biblical side of things, where I've heard someone explain it, is it's a script and they're following it. And that's sort of what you mentioned, where they're going to follow it through, get to the end. My thing is, I don't think they could last 3 days. I'm being optimistic and on the light side. I don't see them surviving that long because there are too many actual humans, and a lot of people are awake. They're afraid to do something, and there's going to be a pushback. Also, I don't see, like, China is over 1 billion people. I don't see how these fake Jews can control China.
Well, the world's run by magic. That's the bottom line. Those of you who don't think magic isn't real and that it isn't affecting you, you're fucking crazy. You're just out to lunch. You don't understand. Magic is real.
Wait, I'm going to stop here. We just got a huge guideline as producers not to swear on air, or the show will be canceled. So you got to watch your tongue, Bruce.
Oh, okay. You're fudging crazy. And but the thing is that magic has its own counterpunch. You have to know how to negotiate it. So a lot of time, energy, and ritual has gone into bringing the world to this point. And for a lot, we're starting to notice it now because the wave is cresting. If you try to talk about these things in 1985, you would have sounded crazy. But you can see the wave cresting now. So it's a very broachable topic. So the thing to do is, generally, magic is a negotiation with the negative side, whether it's white or black magic, by the way. There's no positive entity that grants magical powers to human beings. If you do something that you perceive to be benign with magical ability, it's still technically black magic. We shouldn't be doing magic. No offense to Solaris or any of the witches on the station. If you want to go through it and learn the cycle, all the power to you. We're allowed to do anything we want in these incarnations. And it's better to learn something and to know it than to just avoid it and think you know something about it, or not explore it because you were told not to. But the thing to do with magic is wait for the contract to be fulfilled, because generally the person who granted the power, the entity that granted the power, is usually the first thing or person, being, entity waiting in line to punish, because magic is always a poison contract. And the only empathy I have at this point is I'm not sure what percentage of it, maybe 60, 70% of the Jewish population that really don't know what's going on. And they have a lot of magic worked on them in these synagogue rituals and with all this politicization and the victim consciousness that's been poured on the Jewish people. So I do feel kind of bad for them. But this is going to be over soon. Don't worry about it. But it's going to be messy. A lot of people are going to die. A lot of people are going to leave the planet.
I recently watched, like in the last 3 months, a documentary called Defamation, made by a Jewish chap who, you've seen it?
Oh, yeah. It came out in 2012. I'm recommending that to people for years.
Yeah, the one thing I got out of it is the way that the easy way of saying it is the educational system is Israel is pushing that everyone hates them. They are the victims, and because they breathe air, everyone wants to kill them. And you can see them when they go to Europe and they start doing a tour of the Holocaust camps and everything else like that, which, to be fair, is a good thing to do because you see history. However, the filmmaker not called out one of the students, but he pointed out that, like, they didn't say that because this a girl spoke to a couple of elderly gentlemen, and it was a bit strange conversation because of language. However, the girl remembered it as, they said something derogatory, or they threatened me or something. And you can hear the filmmaker off camera go, "That's not what they said." And that's sort of that element of their education magic, where they're constantly told, like the whole thing with Palestine, they're devils and they want to kill us. Because no one ever answers that question, because you've treated them like crap. But I don't want to get too far into the two-state system. But through that film, I recommend it. It's on YouTube. I'll try and find the link and share it in the chat room. It's worth seeing once just to see how, like the Secret Service guy who was with, because they have protection because they believe that everyone wants to kill them, and that's not a way of living where you're fearful for anyone that's not part of your country or religion. Now, other people, the people that immigrate and start and they assimilate into, say, Australia or Canada, they realize, well, hang on, these people are nice. So it is kind of fascinating. I will find that link and put it into the Revolution Radio chat.
Yeah. So, it's a quick catch up with what's going on in the world. I think I still maintain a lot of faith in Trump. I don't think anyone, but when I say I have faith in Trump, I don't think we're going to be living in a utopia. The only utopia you can create is the one you create for yourself. You can't expect a large anonymous entity like a government corporation to create a better situation for people. But I think Trump is definitely going in the right direction. I think that he's a non-standard politician. I don't think anybody owns him. I think he came in with an agenda. I think that agenda was, as we've been told by the various sources, QAnon and so on and so forth, that this is essentially an attempt to pivot America back into the kind of country it was supposed to be, because it went way off track after the Cold War from about 89 onwards. You can go right back. It all starts with that George Bush speech right at the wall coming down. Remember, he took over the second term because Reagan's mental health went down really quickly after he got shot. So he said, the two big things now are the New World Order and we still have a problem with terrorism. Basically giving a shout out to his friends in the military industrial complex. Don't worry, your stocks aren't going to fall. We got other stuff to do. And, It's 1989. It's been 31 years and it hasn't worked out. The world was a better place during the Cold War than post Cold War when a victor emerged. How does that work? How can you be putting billions of dollars into defense, espionage, and all of this nonsense for 50 years to fight a Cold War, and you can still have a better standard of living and a better life for people than you can post Cold War? So there's my 2 cents worth.
I would say because in the structure of the format of the Cold War, not the United States, but the military, you need an enemy. And that will build the economy with weapons and everything else like that. You don't want to actually have a thermonuclear war because that destroys everything. Like how many? I think there's less nuclear missiles and bombs now on the planet, but they got to the point where they could destroy the planet 16 times over. I think after the first time, everything else is redundant. Mm-hmm. And so and someone correct me if I'm wrong, David Rockefeller, the only man in history that even the Dalai Lama said, yes, he's gone. I noticed when he finally died after the 9th heart transplant, because everyone's heart's gone, I'm not going to live in this. He was basically, the Soviet Union was a paper tiger, and it was only there to have an enemy, to have that kind of structure where it controlled chaos in that respect. And when the wall actually came down and Eastern Europe broke up into their own countries again, I think less than 6 months, it was September 1990 that George Bush Sr. did that speech. For whatever reason, it was the State of the Union address. I don't know why it was in September. And for those Australians listening, I know way too much about the United States. I don't know why. I've been around the station for 5 years. 6 years, actually, in about 2 weeks, I think. Anyway, maths. And he that's when he dropped New World Order in the speech, and he actually made up those Desert Eagle handguns made out of gold with New World Order on the side. And then I think because there wasn't a major enemy, everyone sort of forgot that mindset. And if I may put forward, there's the deep state's version of chaos, and then there's natural chaos. We sort of slipped into natural chaos, where out of that good can come out, using very basic language. I've got a feeling because, and that's sort of what's going on now, is the powers that were in control can't control this chaos. Their control over chaos is slipping through their fingers, and they're panicking. Thoughts?
Well, yeah, no. Let's break down what happened tonight. And so we watched the Iranians on purpose. I mean, the Iranians did this on purpose. They basically launched their missiles from Iran 13 or 15 missiles, ballistic missiles. Basically, they were big butted boys, um, and so they threw them to 3 different areas. And so we watched them throw these missiles, and where they hit, they did not hit target-rich environments. I mean, they could have launched 15 missiles into the Baghdad green zone and killed hundreds of Americans, but they did not. And so, what are we looking at here? Are we looking at a play? Are we looking at
a fake out, like a psych? Psych. Yeah, you're right. No, everyone's okay. Like, well, what was the point of firing off those missiles and missing?
Right. Well, they basically had to redeem their honor. I mean, the Iranians they can't have their top general killed and not respond to it. But when they responded, they did not respond to basically killing Americans. And so now we're waiting for what President Trump is going to do tomorrow. And so we're looking at a complex play on the game, basically. And so it's actually good that the Iranians didn't actually kill hundreds of Americans. They could have. They got something like 2,000 ballistic missiles. They could have blown up ships. They could have sent missiles into Saudi Arabia, blown up pipelines. I mean, they could have done a lot of stuff, but they didn't do it.
Yeah, and I don't think they're idiots either, because they've got a fighting force. They had that how many years fighting Iraq. On Twitter, I follow the Imam of Peace, who he lives in Australia at the moment. I can't remember his birth name. I do apologise, but he did point out that if they attacked Saudi Arabia or anywhere else like that, where there's no US occupation per se, is that you'll have the rest of the Middle East against Iran as well. So I'm backing up what you're saying, because it seems to be a surgical strike in the purest sense, because they didn't kill anyone. They didn't push they walked up to the line and stopped.
No, what they did, they basically saved Trump's presidency. Trump's presidency cannot survive an open war with Iran. He will not survive that, because an open war with Iran will cause an economic collapse worldwide. And I think that's what governed everything tonight.
Yeah,
I think Russia was getting involved. I think everybody was getting involved, and they told the Iranians, "Look, if you go ballistic and you go nuts, and then you got the orange man, he's going to go nuts. We're looking at a worldwide economic depression." And so I think what they did is they mitigated it. There was a deal made. I think the great and mighty king of Mother Russia, Vladimir Putin, basically told the Iranians, "Look, you got just fire off at the Iranian bases, military."
Iraqi, yeah.
Iraqi, right. Iraqi. And that's where the missiles went. And so there's going to be no economic collapse. It looks like President Trump is going to get reelected in 2020. This is the end of it. They're going to tie this thing off. And that's the way it's going to go. That's the way I'm seeing it right now.
Yeah. Also, millions of people won't die, as well as because interesting enough. I'm not saying you ignored that. Interesting enough, as well, in the last 2 weeks, I can't remember exactly, but apparently Iran has found another oil field with 53 billion barrels of oil, which, in the use of this example, is that energy, because our infrastructure is based on oil still, with petrochemical plastics and everything else like that. There needs to be a shift. I'm not going to go climate change on you, because I hate the term climate change living in Australia. There are ways. I still want to save the planet, but I can't have a conversation with someone because I say climate change is natural and they switch off. By attacking Iran, killing all those people, you get a domino effect, very similar to World War One when Franz Ferdinand was killed, and that's sort of now is the Middle East. Could you say it's the energy center of the world, being petrol and fuel and gas?
No. What I'm saying basically is that something's happened in Iran in which they basically have used this guy's political death to codify a different angle. By the way, there was a Boeing 767 that went down in Iran when these wars were happening that killed 183 people. So,
yes, I find that fascinating. Sorry to interject. I find that fascinating that it's Ukrainian. So the people that are like the whole attacking. Like, did you notice in 4 hours Trump was a Russian agent, and then Biden was caught in a lie and corruption. All of a sudden, Trump is a Ukrainian agent. So like, well, they're the same. I find it. Yeah, it's very hard to sort of follow and commentate at the moment because things are moving so fast.
The big thing is that President Trump did get on the air tonight to talk to the American people, and then he's going to wait until the morning. He's going to assess it. The other big thing is that no American was killed. Looks like they're going to tie this thing off, and so.
HiJacker, sorry to interject. Did you see the tweet from the president where it was similar to "All is good" or "So far so good," which just reminded me of a Megadeth album, "So far so good, so what?" But that's just me. But he did sort of like I think before he went to bed, put it in that timeline. He something similar to "It's all is good." So I'm leaning towards a positive reaction for him when he wakes up.
Yeah, no, we diverted World War III, or at least a regional Middle Eastern war. That was the big thing. That's a big thing. We diverted. Go ahead.
Yeah, mainly because I'm going back to my point is I think the basic New World Order thinking is order out of chaos. However, with my analogy that there's two chaoses, there's chaos that they create and can control, like problem, reaction, solution. I think this is the tipping point, is that this chaos is not controllable. And I'm not saying that.
No, Dean, listen, the Iranians actually outthought the deep state. The deep state were thinking they were going to be the first ones to pull the first shot. They were going to set up the false flag. They were going to knock down, United States aircraft carrier or destroyer, but the Iranians actually outthought them, and they actually created where they would attack the Iraqi military bases where these drones came out of, and then the Prime Minister of Iraq basically said, "We're done. We don't want any escalation. We don't want any war. We did what we did. We fired 13, 15 missiles. That's it." And they tied off the deep state. So now if the deep state were to show up and all of a sudden, sink a USS, a naval ship or a frigate or a destroyer or a USS aircraft carrier, nobody's going to believe it. Beautiful, genius.
Yes. Because I've had this conversation with John Wayne, not the actor, is they're using a playbook from the 1800s, and it doesn't work anymore. As you've just pointed out, the Iranians, someone smart's gone, hang on, let's follow this scenario through. Everything will be destroyed. So let's save face. We'll slightly miss. And we can calm everything down, and that it's not really chaos, but the chaos that the New World Order wants, it won't happen.
They went ahead and they said, no, we're not going to give the deep state a chance to actually define our reaction. We're going to define it. We're going to make sure we miss. We're going to make sure we don't kill anybody. And we're going to get through this. We're going to save face, basically. And now Trump, now it's in Trump's court. I don't think Trump is going to do anything. I think President Trump is basically going to send somebody like a Tucker Carlson to Iran to negotiate a peaceful economic, military, political type deal. That's what I think. I don't think there's any more missiles going to be let loose at all. Go ahead.
Yeah. That sort of links back to what was Bruce is saying, where if they the deep state creates certain magic, they have to follow the script 100%. And because it's changed, if they continue on following the script and ignore it, they'll be exposed and it'll backfire massively. And so now what's happening is, I think they're probably running around with chooks or chickens having their head cut off, because they're not good at improvising. Bruce and Viking, I'm wondering, how does that description work for you?
Go ahead, Viking.
If he's near his computer, of course. He may be getting a cup of tea. There we go. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mic was turned off. No, as I said, this is not even this. I mean, I believe it had nothing actually to do with Iran. I think Iran was just a proxy based on the fact it happened in their country. I think they definitely don't want war. As I said, with that would not, that oil field worth trillions of dollars. They're and the people want sovereignty. China want their energy pipelines. This is just two factions that were, even the embassy in Tehran. What was it? Tehran? No, was it Tehran?
Iraq. In Iraq.
Way I'm talking here. In Iraq, I think that those are paid for dissidents. I don't even think that they were real. I think they were paid for dissidents.
So I have a question. For the voices on this radio station who are talking about this, golden dawn rising in the near future with 0 point energy and everything, why are proxy wars over oil pipes still going on?
It's going to take at least 7 years for this transition to occur, and it's also right now fundamentally it's the basis of our economic structure on this planet. It just can't. It's like the bends. I refer to ascension bends, with geopolitical bends, economic bends. You have to go a step at a time here. I do believe that in the next 7 to 10 years we will be on 0 point energy, but right now. The focus is on just keeping this world turning and greased, let's just say. And it can't just happen overnight, but it will happen in proper course of due action.
Yeah, because I would say I don't like the term sheep. I'm going to use the general public. If it happened, if they came out, if Trump tomorrow says we averted war with Iran, here's all the Nikola Tesla technology. The shift would be too quick and put a lot of people into shock. And there'll be mass doubt, as well as
it would be a complete global meltdown, because our entire system is built upon oil right now. It's dollars backed by oil. Every country needs it would be a meltdown.
Yeah, the paradigm shift would be too much for most people, and also you've got the whole thing of as an example. A cure for cancer came out. You have everyone that's been affected by cancer instantly thinking, why did they keep it secret, or why now? What about all our loved ones that passed away? And so they have to drip feed it in a certain way. Unfortunately for us, we know about it. It's like, oh, this is taking so long. But I can understand it from a psychological point of view. Humanity would freak out.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be what's called a transition. You just can't go from one, and we're in it. We're we're in a chrysalis. You know, it was really interesting. Someone pointed out to me that the silkworm in its chrysalis goes into a goop. I didn't know that the actual worm goes into a goop, and then it molecularly structurally forms into a winged creature. And to me, that's what I think that we're doing here. We're going into a gelatinous state of absolute just meltdown. It's going to be a meltdown in so many levels, and then we're going to have to reform ourselves. And this is what is known as the chrysalis of humanity.
Yeah, I can sort of see that, because if I can bring in the culture war, if anyone, I know Viking, you tried to share the video of this, but it's been taken down, strangely enough. Ricky Gervais hosting the Golden Globe Awards, where he basically did awakened comedy and had a go at Hollywood. And the reactions of the people in that room are priceless, because they sort of outed themselves. So it's very, some people are calling it the Dave Chappelle effect, where it is pure truth comedy, and Ricky Gervais doesn't care, which he said a lot. And he was attacking, like, he actually dropped a Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself joke. And that was on NBC, which is one of the big networks. And that's reverberated through, as well as everything else is going on. I just wanted to add that to the mix. We're slowly getting there. That's where I'm coming from.
I think that the comedy skit was absolutely brilliant. Not only did he say that Epstein didn't kill himself, he goes, yeah, I know a lot. You know, he was a lot of your friends, and you know, he may not have made it on the Lowly Express, where he intimated that they took their own private planes. I mean, the guy was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant.
One line that I do love is, like, if ISIS put up started their own platform, you'll call your agent. And yeah, that was cutting because most of those people, they live in California, and we have people on the station that do live in California, and they point out how homeless is going through the roof. San Francisco, there's feces everywhere, and drug abuse, everything else like that. And then you have the Hollywood elites that live in gated communities surrounded by white people. Sorry to bring up race, but this is with rich people, and they think, oh, you should do this to save the planet. Meanwhile, the California state is slowly crumbling into the sea, economically and politically and socially.
Mm-hmm.
No, we've had here in Northern California, because of the fires. There's a stretch about 3 miles from my house. It's along a bike path. Now, bike path is public property, so they have every right. There's probably 3 miles of tents right along this bike path, because they're just like they can't, and half these people work, but because of the fires and the lack of housing. I mean, it's got to a point where, and it's pretty much it's organized. It's not like San Francisco, but it's still a complex situation that we need to seriously start facing.
Well, we're having similar stuff here in Australia. A bit of statistics for people listening. We are roughly, I think we're slightly bigger than the continental the United States, the 49 states or whatever it is, from Canada to Mexico. However, we only have 24 million people living here. Any Australians listening, I'm going to sound cold. I do apologize. It's not that big. I mean, if we've lost to fire the size of Belgium, but there's only a small city of Belgium living here, and so it's a cluster frack. Because I'm not going to swear, but that's the word that came back, because you've had very quickly water being diverted from the natural waterways and sold off to international corporations so they can grow cotton, as well as defunding of the fire services. Apparently the backburning or the fuel reduction has been minimal for 4 years. And let's see, nearly 200 arsonists have been arrested since September, and according to one website, they were the cause of 50% of the fires. We're up to a break, so we'll just pause here. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, revolution.radio. This is Planet Collingwood Open Round Table. Stick around after these messages. We'll be back to keep having your chin wag. And we have returned. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, revolution.radio, Planet Collingwood Open Round Table. My name is Monty Dean. I have been lucky enough to be joined by HiJacker and Viking, and I think Bruce is just in the green room checking out the cashews, as one does, because I like cashews. If you enjoyed the last hour, please go to the websites, one or the other, freedomslips.com or revolution.radio, and donate what you can, because we are totally listener supported. We're all volunteers. We have been on air for over 9 years, Studio A and B, and as you can tell from the last hour, I think we're needed just to work our ideas and comment on what's going on and stop world destruction and hopefully have a laugh during it, but not at it, if I can make it that way. Also, when you're at the website, click on the merchandising/swag and buy a t-shirt. I believe there's caps, there's onesies for the little one, coffee cups and key rings and all sorts of things. Also, the archives, which I think they're being worked out because of the transition. Then pop into the chat room and hang out with like-minded, like-hearted, and just like people. Hello, chat room. May Street 139 just said hello, so I'm saying hello back. Gentlemen, where do we want to go? I don't know if I finished my rant about the Australian fires. A lot of life has been taken up, and it could have been prevented. And it's a schmozzle, as they would say 100 years ago. Very similar, Viking, because I think you're in Northern California. It's roughly the same distance from the equator, and so similar. We don't get chemtrailed as much, but Max Egan has shared that barium, aluminium, and strontium are all used in party sparklers, and so that's why everything. Because firefighters have said this fire seems to be extremely weird. We haven't seen this type of thing before. John Wayne, not the actor, put into the host chat in Skype a 4-minute video of a fire truck in South Australia. I only saw the start of it. And he's the message he added to it. Good God, that's frightening and surrealistic, because I'm wondering if there's a connection to a biblically. We are on fire. However, as I said, there's only 24 million people spread across the bigger size of the United States. However, people are losing farms. Mind you, they live in forests, and I think we're the only continent where fire is needed to rejuvenate the ecosystem, which I do find fascinating. So I know it is world news, and Australians are working together as they do. Strangely enough, you notice not common people, the general public, when there is a disaster, they work together and help each other, which, my faith in humanity is still there. As well as, interesting enough, a lot of, I think 1 or 2 celebrities have said, Pink, the singer, she's not your cup of tea, that's not the point, but she's donated $500,000. And if that's US dollars, that's like $3 billion Australian. And so a lot of other Elton John, as well as Chris Hemsworth, and so a lot of very rich people are donating, especially a lot of artists that love Australia and Australia loves them, so they're giving back. And it'll be interesting to see how, when the fires all stop, what actually happens.
I had a question about that. I watch a lot of Quest TV, and there's a lot of gold miners. Is that a gold region? I believe it's heavily. I think that's where most of the gold is coming out of Australia, right?
Well, South Australia maybe, yeah. I'm only used to like 150 years ago when there was a gold rush in the central Victoria, but they were basically mined out, and so there's still a lot of mining going on. There's a couple of maps that's been released. One's by NASA, where it's a 3D model. As I said at the start of the show, apparently my house will be on fire, so don't believe everything you see. But it is like the smoke has actually ended up in Chile. It covered New Zealand. Vinnie Eastwood's been sharing videos of the smoke going over it. Here in Melbourne, we actually had smoke from the Tasmanian fires, and it's a different forest down there, and it stank. Like, instead of, like, if you've ever burnt different types of tree or wood, you know the different type of smells where, you pour water onto a campfire and the ash and steam comes up. There is that smell. And to go with, I'm not sure 100% on the gold mining areas. However, the fires seem to be on property that will have a very fast rail contract, allegedly. However, because of the perfect firestorm, as Max Egan coined it, the land's been waiting for this type of thing. It usually happens every 10 years. However, I'm trying to find the right term for it, but not the opposite of a comedy of errors. Everything's worked out perfectly, where dead wood and fuel is on the ground, which you're not allowed to remove. The backburning's been changing, and because the sun is in solar minimum, the magnetic poles are moving, so the magnetic fields so a lot of people say, oh, it's climate change. It's like, well, it's not, because 50% of them were started by arsonists. We'll still have fires, but not at this degree. Viking.
Now, a lot of your trees in the forest, those are eucalyptus in nature, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Basically, we have they brought the eucalyptus tree here to Northern California back in the 30s, thinking it would be good barnwood, but it's actually not. So we have groves of eucalyptus, and from what I know of it, it's highly volatile. I mean, the oils in the leaves of the eucalyptus are just I think it's one of the most volatile trees in the world.
Yeah. Also, the koalas eat them, and it's basically a high for them, and so it's they have to constantly eat them, and that's why they're also docile and don't move that much. And it's dried out. We don't get much chemtrailing, but we do get chemtrailing here, because going back through history, tens of thousands of years ago, the Aboriginals would use fire to corral the megafauna, the really big animals, which they eventually made extinct. And over time, the environment here in Australia, they need a fire to go through once every 10 years to rejuvenate everything. Now, the difference is the Aboriginals, who are caretakers of the land, they would start fires in the winter and burn off all the lower level fuel at the bottom, and the trees would be okay because the flame's not that high. However, when you have a heat wave, there's lots of wind, the chemicals from the chemtrailing, all the dead wood and the foliage, arsonists, it's just a perfect firestorm, and that's what you're seeing, where as well as the government removing water from the land through the Murray-Darling system into dams, which apparently were paid for by the taxpayer, but is for international companies to utilize whatever they want. So the whole, the aquifer is empty, the land is completely dry, as well as the chemicals and everything else like that. So 10 years ago here in Victoria, you had Black Saturday, and 137 people were killed during that because it was 40-degree heat Celsius. I think that's over 100 Fahrenheit, and that was a perfect situation for it as well. And I just find it interesting. I don't know if it's pure chaos. So I don't know if it's the deep state trying to push everyone into cities, into a smart grid, or it's on the flip side of that, it's part of the cleansing for ascension and everything else like that. And a lot of people are hurting, but a lot of people are getting together and saying, well, no, we can do better and we'll help these people. It's a very fascinating situation. And I seem to be cut off it. I'm sort of a robot. I don't know, because not near me, but could be also I'm an empath, and I don't want to feel that because it'll be intense.
No, I'm the same way. There's one caveat here is with what the galactics are saying, is that all you need is one molecule of a life form on this planet, and you can regenerate it back into its fullest form in 20 years. Once we get these new energetics on this planet. So I mean, yeah, I would look at it as an unfortunate cleansing, but it all can be rejuvenated, regrown, and restructured in a very miraculous way. I know I have trees on my property here. They've only been here for 6 years and they've doubled in size. And I'm talking about, 20, 30 foot trees that normally would take 50 years to grow are growing in 5 years. I mean, there's something happening here to the template of our existence on this planet. This is definitely in a quantum shift. And I believe it's just going to get more dynamic as we go along, especially with nature and the fact that we're getting just the very beginning of the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect could actually replace these forests from a different timeline with new forests, and that's actually happening. And they're saying that that's actually happening in South America. That the Mandela effect is actually bringing in brand new landscapes that have never been seen before.
Interesting. I've got a question from SJ from the chat. I'll answer, and then I've got a question for Bruce, actually, because he lives on a mountain in a jungle. And so it'd be fascinating to see what that ecosystem's like. SJ, what do the Aboriginals say? They have been being put forward of controlled backburning or fuel reduction in a traditional way where, because they know the land, say in a valley, they know what spot to start the fire, and it grows out in a 360 radius, and it actually can just remove the grass and the dead wood, and the tree still survives. It's not massive, 50 feet firestorm. The political side of things is our Prime Minister has been shunned because he's ignored it, and I don't want to go into that. It's just, you can look at the reaction where he's not a good leader at this point in time. However, the system, because it's been going on for 10 years, they're doing the Western mentality of like, oh, we'll rebuild, and we'll put money aside, and we'll build exactly the same things in a fire region, instead of the Aboriginals, where they know the land and they can work with the land and stop this catastrophe. Bruce, being in a jungle, you don't have fires, or what's it like there with the energies and everything else that's going on?
There can be fires here during what we would call the dry season. There's a period where we go without rain for a sustained period, and a lot of my neighbors will do controlled burns at that time, including my girlfriend's family. The natives also do controlled burns for agriculture, rather than. And then the ash is actually good. And when you go in with picks and shovels or whatever you use, I think they just use sticks or whatever to turn or mulch the earth. The burned stuff is actually really good fertilizer. But this is not a place where one has to worry about being taken over by fire. I mean, it's a very thin country bordered by the Pacific and the Atlantic. And there's generally a temporal rain every day for about 8 months of the year.
Yeah, that's
very green.
I would imagine, because, as I said, Australia is used to actually having a fire go through to rejuvenate, because the plants have evolved where they need fires to not get destroyed, but they get burnt enough where the seeds come out, and they if a fire goes through 2-3 years later, you just see it, everything's charcoal that survived, but there's green everywhere because Mother Nature's just worked. That's how it's awesome. It's just like, oh, we've done this thousands of times. Let's grow back. So
here in Northern California, we have what's called the giant sequoia. In the same way, it needs a fire in order for the seed to pop and activate. And you're right. Like the next rainy season, the next spring, there's the most amazing display of wildflowers and foliage. And I mean, that's where you get your best display, is after a fire.
Yeah, HiJacker, without telling us your exact location, what's happening around your area? Like, has there been many fires, or is it the ecosystem stable? If he's near his computer, of course. I don't think he's there at the moment, so we'll go back to him.
Well, Ted, the fires last year from my farm, looking north, the entire mountain was on. I mean, it's like the mountain range. We're talking like 20 miles of mountain range. There's only 30 miles away, was in complete blaze. I mean, complete. My daughter was on top of a container in a lawn chair, just watching the fire, and it's actually it's humbling, and the smoke you could barely see. You know, I mean, and it brings a fright or flight. I mean, I was freaked out. I knew it would never get to us, but still, it in its own way, it was awesome to see this destructive force of nature. But at the same time, you know, it's just you don't wish it on your worst friend.
No, I was going to ask, do they move very quickly? Because here in Australia, I heard a story of back 10 years ago where they're living in a shack, it's corrugated iron, and it sounded like rain, but apparently the father's gone, that's not rain, it's actually the fire heading towards them. They grab the kids, their mobile phones, get in the car, they're driving nearly 100 kilometers an hour, like 50, 60 miles an hour down the road. The fire was catching up to them, but the wind changed and the fire just went, oh, I'm turning left now. And it's been reported in these fires, they get up to 200 kilometers an hour, which I think, as a guesstimate, 100 miles an hour. And so that's how dry the land is. I think the lack of water underneath has dried out the land as well. And so it's fascinating because humanity's had this strange relationship with fire since the dawn of time. And so I can understand it is that flight or fight aspect, but also if you're far away enough from it, there is a strange, I don't know, joy, would you say, Viking? It's not joy, but it's just seeing...
It's very it's like an elation, you know, just to see that strong act of nature is something that, and I've seen it 3 times now in my lifetime, and just where the entire hillside's on fire. I mean, you know, this glowing red, bursts of flames, you know, just I was awestruck. Let's put it that way, awestruck.
Yeah, that's a better word. Thank you. It's just fascinating. The thing is now, do they actually use a brain and rebuild using the right technology, dare I say hempcrete, which doesn't burn? Or they actually, I think the town of Orbost, that burnt down 10 years ago, but they built it exactly the same. It's I remember Robin Williams and Henry Rollins have made jokes about, like, when a house gets flooded, it's like, oh, we lost our things again. What do you mean again? Yeah, I live on a floodplain. You like, it's called a floodplain for a reason. Like, it's that even in Brisbane, which is a major city in Queensland, it's actually, they had flooding, I think, in the last 10 years, and it's actually an overflow. It may only happen once a century, but you have to, remember where you live and find out. Like, her mother-in-law actually lives near a creek on the coast in eastern Victoria, and they've built the house up because they know it is a floodplain. It doesn't happen every 3 months. It may happen once 50 years, but the house is slightly up, so the water will go underneath. It's, just use a little bit of nous. If you're going to move on a floodplain, put it on stilts.
Right on.
Yeah, just simple things like, and if you're going to live in a forest, at least know that you have a bushfire plan, or we call them bushfires because it's called the bush, but the rest of the planet calls them wildfires, which makes sense. You have a plan, and you listen and you understand the information, and so when the ABC, they usually have the cricket, but they've been talking about the bushfires because that's how people can actually, best communication is over the public airwaves. If they say leave now, but apparently someone's like leave now, and then 10 minutes later, no, it's too late to leave, because they jump fires and everything else. Yeah, it's these fires are more extreme, and it's not just because of climate change. It's temperature-wise and the winds kind of been the same over, say, the last 20 to 30 years. This has happened before. However, as I said, with the lack of water and the chemtrailing, and man's involved, but it's not because I drive a car and produce CO2.
Okay.
So that's my piece. And then interesting enough with the whole Iran thing, people say, oh, Trump just killed that guy to get him away from impeachment. Like, oh, okay. It's supposed to be a distraction. But as I said earlier, we're at the point where it's very hard to sort of critique these things and find out what is a distraction and what isn't. Because in the last 24 hours, everyone was saying, oh, you shouldn't have killed him, where we stand with Iran. And then they fired off all these missiles, and it's like, ooh, yeah. So everyone looks like an idiot now. So it's...
Have you seen the recent speeches of Pelosi, where she can barely talk anymore? I mean, she's literally to the point where she's just jabbering and murmuring and can get barely a word out. And, she's uncontrollable with her hands. She's just gibbering. She's literally just gibbering. And the main reason why Trump had to go it alone was if he would have notified anybody else, that guy would have been, they would have basically have contacted him because, that general was their puppet. And if he hadn't mentioned it anywhere in the Democratic Party, he would have been he would not be dead at this point. And so, it's just really interesting how he has to do everything in a subversive way just because the Democratic Party is so corrupt.
Yeah, I released a tweet saying, for those who missed it earlier, climate change is natural and pollution. CO2 is not pollution. The sun is in minimum. The magnetic poles are moving. There's global warming on other planets in our system. How will a tax help? And someone responded, AOC, well, we should tax and find those planets. It's like politics is usually you have satire and comedy attacking politics and critiquing politics. However, now you just have to watch politics and it's turning into a comedy because not the word on the street, but the perception on the street is that Pelosi is a raving alcoholic. And from what you just said, Viking, that kind of makes sense. Like, even she's deteriorating for whatever reason, but she's got the telltale signs of drinking heavily, where she's slurring, she's got that blank stare, she's waving her arms about. She may not even drink alcohol, but that's how she comes across.
Here's another...
Definitely a slot for her at Rev Radio if she keeps it up.
Oh, now, hey. I'll cut down. Go ahead, Viking.
There's another theory that her clone is breaking down.
Well, yeah, I'm going to put that to energy as well because, did you see the photos of Hillary Clinton where apparently she's had a facelift where she looks younger now and someone's pulled the skin to the back of her head and tied a knot where she looks completely different from 6 months ago. It's like... So even if it's not a clone,
we're very bad. We're bad.
No, I know, but I'm trying to make people at home laugh. Even if they're not clones, their genomic, the connection to the demon that would be feeding them has been lost, and so they're slowly decaying away.
Yeah, I think that's something.
The latest on Zero Hedge today is now Chelsea is being outed as earning $9 million as a board member of some corporation. I mean, Pelosi's son, Schumer's son, of course, Biden's son, they're all incestuous in this scandal.
Yeah, I did see someone put out I think it was a tweet, a great thing where it's like people are upset that a billionaire became a politician while ignoring all the politicians that have become millionaires. Yeah. Where did all the money come from? I think it's Maxine Waters lives in a multi-bedroom palatial mansion that's not actually in the district that she allegedly represents. I know Obama's been earning money after he left office, but he had $2 million before he started, and he had 42 million after he. It's like, well, it's if
Pelosi has $140 million for being 30 years as a congressman.
See now, here's a question for the Brains Trust here on Planet Collingwood. Do you think the idea of having term limits for Congress people and senators be applied? Because you've got the John McCain wasn't in Washington for 2 years because he had a brain tumor and everything else, but he wouldn't let go of being a senator. Now, how does that supposed to represent the people of Arizona?
As well as anyone else they've had.
Well, that's true. So, we're getting to the point where we're seeing the old ways slowly decay, and I love my joke, so I'm going to say it again. Have you seen a photo of Bill Clinton lately? It looks like something sucking the life out of him, and it's not Monica. It's
a good shtick.
Oh yeah. And that's going to be up on my YouTube channel soon.
Keep it going, Monty. You try out some new material.
Did you see on I think it was Zero Hedge where Trump Jr. was just showing off his AR-15, and on his mags was a caricature of Hillary Clinton behind bars.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah, I found it. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Now that's an interesting thing. Like, did Trump just say that he would put her in jail to get elected, or that will eventually happen when the event's right, not the time's right, but when the event's right?
The latter.
Yeah, because it's,
and I don't think that personally, I don't think you'll ever see her go to jail. I think because if you had Obama or Clinton's or the Bushes being hauled off in a perp walk, it would destabilize. It literally would destabilize our country. These guys are going to be taken out subversively.
Well, they're losing their money. You can just look at the history of the Clinton Foundation, where before 2016 they were up to say $700 million a year, and I think last year they closed or they ceased to exist because they lost the power, so they weren't getting the donations, and I think they lost money last year. And that's interesting enough where there's Australian politicians, even I think the government donated to the Clinton Foundation. So it's I can understand it's a slow burn in certain aspects, but we're also seeing vast shifts quickly. And till November, where we've got the election in the United States, it's going to be an interesting ride, as Bill Hicks would say. It's just a ride, but what a roller coaster.
I think the people you'll see indicted will be, Comey, Strzok, Page, Brannon. You're going to see these mid-level people brought in, and also some congressmen. The mod squad of the House of Representatives, they're seditious. I mean, every one of them is seditious, and they got to be taken down.
Well, that's part of all these people that were supporting Iran. It's like you're attacking the country that you live in and you're a citizen of. On a base level, you're being treasonous, and that's how
Absolutely.
far. This is how far the division is. Where remember when, like most people that I know that are centrist now grew up left-esque in the 80s, because like the insane, moronic, hate-filled people used to be on the right wing. Now the far left just calls everyone alt-right. I don't know any Nazis. I think they're being created because of how is that done? The manifestation. If you've been called something so often, you start to believe it. And have you noticed words like racist, Nazi, and there's like 3 or 4, they're losing their power, where like used to be, oh, you're a Nazi. That was a massive insult and you would defend yourself. But now, if I point out that I think The Last Jedi is a poorly made film, instantly I become a Nazi. It's like, I don't remember invading Poland. I went to a cinema and didn't like the bloody movie.
Oh my God, that Star Wars thing really gets under your skin, eh? Not
just me. There's a lot of people because
It's not a religion, Monty. It's just a movie.
no. Well, it's a movie that's been around for 40 years. It's a cultural icon, and a lot of people connected to the mythos and the understanding of what was being put forward in the first three movies. And people have said there's a connection to past life with Orion and everything else like that. What Disney's done over the last 5 years, it's poor storytelling, and it's just a cash grab. And if you disagree with it and like say I don't like this film, you're called I've been called a racist, a sexist, a Russian bot.
Well,
that's interesting.
do I have to quote Ricky Gervais? If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent.
Yeah, basically, like I've got an idea for a show. It's Wear My Burqa, okay? Now, what we need, I was just going to talk about Flavor Flav in Love. I don't know how that would work. But that's the thing where it's just a movie, but we're still talking about the movie from 1977, and everyone went and saw it, and everyone knows about it. But the last three seems empty. For me, there's no spirituality at all. The main character is perfect from the very first minute and hardly earns anything. It's like that whole, everyone gets an award for participating. It's like, well, that's not how it works. The Olympics is going to get very boring if you get rid of the three medals and just give everybody a medal because they turned up.
So I'm going to go back to this whole thing with, Trump said he's going to drain the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel that he's not going to do anything with the house cleaning. Because the house cleaning needs to occur. I believe he's going to wait till the election to let the people decide which is the smarter move. Let the people take these people out, and let's find our own salvation with the with the masses making a point. Because he would, he's very smart by not going after him. He could. I mean, everyone can be brought down right now. It absolutely can be brought down. But I believe he's going to wait, and he's going to absolutely crush the Democratic Party. These people are going to be leaving in shame, and he will have won a glorious battle without even having to make a move.
I think the aspect of that is because if Trump gets rid of them, that would fuel the fire for people that hate Trump and go, look, he's being a dictator.
Absolutely. And he's doing this because he's being impeached. This is not a strategy that's going to work. They're hoping it would, but it's not going to work.
Well, I remember Bruce and I having a conversation on air where it's like, why would you do it 12 months before the election? The timing of it politically is completely stupid because if it's supposed to be from the conversation he had with the leader of the Ukraine, and he released the transcript where he said, like, I'm just wondering, is this true? And they've gone, oh, no, he's been a dictator and he's, because they hate him so much. You're going to have 12 months. You should have done it maybe brought it out when the Democratic Party's nominee was announced, and then done the whole impeachment thing, or however the system works. It should have been closer to the election to sway people's minds. However, now the division's just more vast because people who hate Trump go, oh, he's impeached, he's see, I told you he's evil, and then all the Trump supporters are like, he did nothing wrong. Well, he did nothing. And so they're more steadfast. And so if Trump loses, that's massive voter fraud. And interesting enough, I think the state of New York is giving out licenses to undocumented immigrants. They hate Trump so much, they're trying to throw the election without actually thinking further down, instead of, dare I say, putting forward a leader, as I would say. Now, in the Democratic Party, for me, I'm not saying they would win, but Tulsi Gabbard and Marianne Williamson seem to be good eggs for the job type thing. They could go. Now, I'm sure people can say, well, they did this. The thing is, those two can't be controlled by the establishment of the DNC, so they're pushed out. And so they're trying to get Biden, and he's a comedy goldmine. Like, he keeps just, I don't know how he's still surviving as a candidate. Where did you see him do this thing? It was like, I remember I was sitting in the pool and all these kids would come up and rub my legs and feel my hair. It's like he bit his wife's finger while on the podium. Like unless he's doing a very long ad for dementia, what is going on?
He doesn't even know which state or city he's in. It's just really pathetic. It's pathetic.
Yeah, I think he's in a state of confusion. You're
right. The first time it's dementia.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, I think it was the second debate. He's actually talking, and you can see the blood in his eye just slowly leak. And he's slowly falling apart in front of the camera. And someone named him old Clotton Eye Joe. And it's just ridiculous how they're still pushing Bernie. There's still a rumbling that Hillary could come back and put forward a thing. And it's like, really? No one liked her the last time. What makes you think she's going to be good this time? And it's going to be fascinating to see who runs with Trump. What do you think the Republican Party is going to do? Like, are they just going to go, oh, Trump's it? Is anyone going to try and try and contest the nomination, or they'll just allow Trump to go through?
No, this can be Trump. Yeah, and Tulsi, I really like Tulsi Gabbard, although she has no world experience. I don't think she could bring our country out of bankruptcy like Trump is doing. She would make a good maybe Secretary of State, but I'd like to see her maybe down the road. But I'd like to see her get some air in her sail, but before she attempts the presidency. I think she's got a lot of tenacity, and she's I think she's got a lot. She's energetic, but I don't know if she has the experience.
No, as yet. I think that's what this sort of campaign's for, is to sort of get seen and from this, in a way, step up so she can start doing it. But Secretary of State would make sense because, I think she's still technically serving in the military. So she's got that aspect. But the economic side, give her a couple of terms working with figures and get the experience from that. So
she'd be a great apprentice.
Yeah, I think someone put forward an idea of, imagine if Trump actually picks a Democrat for the vice presidency.
Why would he do that? He's trying to destroy the party. Why would he do that? He doesn't have to.
Oh, well, no, let's see. Well, I'm talking maybe Tulsi could think. Yeah, because I think 90% of the party will disintegrate, and then maybe because of brand recognition they may change the name. But there are still people that are on the left that can see that the far left are insane, and they're sort of being iffy of like, will you people calm down? And so because it's a two-party system, it's either Republican or Democrat. And even Marianne Williamson may not get further, but by just running and sharing ideas, the ideas are out in the consciousness. And so she may never get to the White House at all, but I think the ideas and just the doing good, or that feeling, will seep through. So here's a weird statement. I think the Democratic Party can be saved, but they may change the name because.
Why?
Well,
why? No. Why do you think? But why would you want that?
Well, it's the 5 to 10%. Like it's only 5%. The Democratic, the echelon, the establishment, and everyone that's on the podiums now, they'll all be gone. So it'll be sort of a clean sweep where there'll be a certain very small group of people that aren't insane. I'm figuring out. They'll probably change the name because the Democratic Party has dug a massive hole. You've got a lot of African Americans walking away from them because they've actually looked at the history of the last 40, 50, 60 years where the Democrats haven't done anything for them. They've just been used to get their votes. So that's where I sort of meant. I think there'll be a small group of people that will come out of it, because they disagree with the majority of it. So they may not call themselves Democrats because of it's been tarnished. They also contested slavery and started the KKK. So it's interesting.
Well, it's going to take a couple terms for them to say if they even can salvage the Democratic Party. I mean, there's going to be such a walk of shame when these guys leave office. It's going to be unprecedented, absolutely unprecedented. And I love the way Trump jokes with the press that he's looking at 8 and 12 years down the road. He's kind of just throwing that out there. But who knows, man? Things may change.
Yeah, it's my perspective is if someone brings down Trump, he'll bring everyone else down as well. Not on purpose. It's just, if he's done that, the crimes of Obama and everything else like that, the whole house of cards will collapse. People have put forward, not prophecy, but the put forward of what's actually going to sort of happen is, I think Sean David Morton was one of them. Trump may not get to the end of his second term. He may just get sick and tired of it or have an illness problem. I don't think assassination, he won't be killed, but he'll make it through, start his term, and then maybe step out. So now, here's a question. You may be aware of this. Has Trump picked his running mate? Because will he keep Pence as vice president?
It's undetermined.
Yeah. Now, how long do I have to wait till that? What, June? That's another 6 months.
I think June is when the whole thing will start to be announced. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got 6 months because I love in a joking way to point out to people, we should get rid of Trump. You'll get Bruce. No, Bruce has come back. Damn you. You'll get Mike Pence. And they go, what? It's like, yeah, you need to think these things through. That's how it works. If you get rid of the president, the vice president becomes president. And I don't think anyone wants President Pence. I don't think
Pelosi's third down from Pence.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I wouldn't trust her to open the letter.
Well, Pence, if Trump went down, Pence could easily be taken out, and then of course, but that's like a alternate split reality that I didn't want to go down.
Yeah, I don't sort of see it, but a lot of these old people, they are really falling apart, and I think it's because people have. What's that drug that you get from children? It starts with A.
Adachrome.
Yeah, Adachrome. They're not getting that, or especially the financial system's drying up for the shady side of things, and it's fascinating to see how the deep state's freaking out because, as I coined it on this show, I think it's natural chaos, not controlled chaos, and they've lost control of the chaos.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think Trump his main objective, his main purpose here is to bring not only this country out of bankrupt, because the entire world's bankrupt. We're working on toxic derivatives. There's overnight repos that are keeping us from absolutely collapsing. Artificially propping up the stock market, the bond market. I mean, the whole thing is just junk. It's like a dead horse being fed meth. Well, the horse is dead, but they're still trying to keep it going with methamphetamines. It's absolutely the worst it's ever been in history, worse than the stock market crash of 1929, 2008. It's just we have gone way beyond those measures, and it's his job to bring us into more of a sovereignty with getting rid of the Fed, going into a gold-backed U.S. Treasury note to bring manufacturing back, to reignite the auto market, the home market. This is going to take 3 or 4 years, but once that's done, I think at that point he will leave because his job's done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of Trump. He just seems to be the best option that we have without going into a negative timeline. I think that's the best way of explaining it, because I don't want to meet him, and I would only vote for him if he was going against Hillary Clinton. And that's what I find interesting as well. I try and, Trump's terrible, blah, 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 should get rid of him. There's an English rapper called Zuby. He was on Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro and stuff like that. He grew up in Saudi Arabia. He got popular because he basically said, I identify as a woman now, and so I'm breaking all the weightlifting records. And it was just a joke because that's how the PC mob work. And he got all these followers, including me. But he said, like, if Trump is so bad, why hasn't anyone pointed out an option? And that's what the Democrats haven't done over the last 3 to 4 years. They've only attacked Trump. They've never found a leader and stepped up and said, I've got this will save America. We can make things better, everything else like that. There hasn't been anyone.
Well, no, but not anybody of note or anybody that's credible. I mean, you have
yes.
all of the people that are vying for the Democratic Party are absolute idiots.
Oh yeah, and Biden's falling apart, including his mind. Pelosi looks like an alcoholic that needs to sit down. Maxine Waters just wants to fight people, and
there's Pocahontas, which is really probably their darling child, but she's just a lying witch.
Yeah, and that's being polite. And there isn't any options, and that's sort of why I know it will never happen. But
Sanders, if you forgot Sanders.
Well, he had a heart attack, and he still wants all the socialism. It's like, we need to give free healthcare to everybody and give people money. It's like, well, pay your campaign staff more money, and also maybe sell one of those mansions you have. You have 3 or 4, and so the hypocrisy is huge.
The point is that is the lineup, and there's nobody there. That's the lineup, and that's their answer. Yeah. That's their answer. It's pathetic.
Yeah, and that's the problem about the two-party system, because I was not saying I would get Jill Stein in, but like there are not 2 people running for the presidency of the United States. There's usually up to 18, but because of the control of the 2 parties, you only see the 2 big ones. Same here in Australia, where you've got the coalition, which is the Liberals, which is the business, and the Nationals, which used to support the farmers and the rural. And then the flip side, you've got Labor. But there are independents and about 3 or 4 other parties. But you need, I think, over 150 seats to form government in the lower house of Australian Parliament. And we have something called preferences. So if I vote for the Shooters Party, they don't get far enough up in votes. So all those votes, I prefer to follow Labor. And so all the votes go to Labor. And so it comes down to a 2-party system.
So I'm going to shift over to across the pond here to Britain. I just can't wait till the 31st to see if Boris Johnson can actually pull up Brexit. This is like it's like waiting for an egg to hatch. It's just like so exciting just to see if that's actually going to occur. Because if it does, you're going to start that's going to be the snowball being pushed over the mountain. At that point, and it's going to absolute bring down the EU probably within 12 to 14 months. You're going to see multiple countries joining suit, and I want to know what your opinion is on Boris Johnson.
He looks like a toffee-nosed potty git. However, I got the feeling he'll probably get it through. I don't know if you follow Jonathan Pye. He's a satirical journalist. It's the idea of the character is it's journalists talking off camera what they really feel. The character it's done by an actor who needed work, so he created the character, and he's done well. He doesn't agree with Jonathan Pye 100%. However, Pye actually comes across where he says, I'm a remainder. However, we had a vote. The population said leave, then let's leave. And so he's stepped back and instead of being selfish, he understands that the people want this. And so it'll be interesting. I would say it's going to probably happen, and it's a major shot in the spiritual war, if one way could say, of what's actually going on. I don't know how it'll be done. However, I'm leaning towards yes. If he drops the ball and kicks the can further down, politically the United Kingdom is in total disarray, because that's what the last 2 or 3 prime ministers have done since the actual referendum, 3 years ago.
So what the hell's with Northern Ireland? Why are they such a holdout?
Northern Ireland, from my understanding, is when Ireland actually had a revolution in, I think, 1922. They were mainly Catholics, Church of England, and so they chose to stay with the United Kingdom. That's a very basic way of saying it, and that's where you get a lot of the troubles. Very Irish, not sort of like war or anything. It's like, oh, we had the troubles, and that's where the IRA come out of, because they want a complete island. But that little postage stamp at the top of Northern Ireland is because there's a lot of people that still want to be British or part of the United Kingdom, and that's why you've got Catholics and Protestants. Both Christian, by the way. I don't think they understood the message of love your brother. They've been at each other for so long, at least 500 years. And because they had a parade 500 years ago, one collective walks through the other collective's area and just antagonizes them because it's tradition. And so it's stupid. From the outside, it's stupid. Now, if you actually talk to someone from Northern Ireland, they'll probably actually put the record straight and tell you exactly what's going on. But I'm just going from an outsider's point of view, because my perspective is they're both Christians, but they hate each other, and I think they missed the message.
So I just want to, go back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show with HiJacker. The Washington Post ran a story. I put it in the chat. And they're saying that it's, these crowds for Soleimani's death, is just pure propaganda. It's all nonsense. And that he was, basically a hated figure in Iran. So he's not loved at all. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying. They had to pay people and bribe people even to show up.
Well, that's part of the regime as well. If you actually sort of say no to the Iranian government, you could end up in a hole for 6 months. They're actually arresting and putting women in jail because they don't wear the habib or whatever it is. It's just a bit of cloth on their head, but they don't.
Burqa.
Burqa, yeah. Or, well, isn't the burqa the one that the full face one and you only see the eyes? But
right, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, just the headscarf, because they're not wearing the headscarf. They're an abomination to Allah, and so they get thrown in. And then on the flip side, you have people in the West saying, oh, no, this is a sign of feminism, and that's why people should wear it. And that's the disconnect we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Like another example is you've got people in the United States saying we want socialism and communism, and then you have people in Hong Kong, we want to be like the United States. Like there's more flags being flown in Hong Kong than there are in the United States type thing. It's extremely weird where it comes across as an outsider. Bruce, you could probably chime in as well. There are a lot of people, even in Congress with Aman, what's her name, they hate the country they live in.
Yeah.
Like, why are you there then?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is really something that we need to hone in on. Is I call them chronic complainers. Like they're doom and gloomers, leftist, nonsensical, ludicrous thinkers like AOC and Bernie Sanders, burned out hippies, and just no connection with reality. Prattling off some nonsense that is just a complete and utter distraction. It's got to stop. It's just got to stop.
It will burn out. Like a virus, it will burn out.
Yeah, the problem with the left, and somebody should just sum this up, is you can't help people who don't want to help themselves. Increasing welfare for people who just take advantage of it and don't use it as a respite in a job search campaign or some program to get back on their feet is nonsense. You can't keep placating those people, right? you got to work in this world. It's part of the economic matrix and the spiritual paradigm. Unless you can reach a state of consciousness where you can live on sunshine and you don't have to drink water or eat food, then you got to participate in the economy here. The energy matrix is part of the spiritual responsibility. And quite frankly, this may sound a bit, standoffish, but when I'm talking to somebody and they don't have that foundation down, I discredit almost everything they say, because how can anything built on that be correct? It can't be correct. The left has gone mad. They're the mad king.
Yeah, it's like we're getting told that, maybe, just for climate change, we should eat people. What?
Yes.
We're at this level? Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Now, we've got about 3 minutes to go. Thank you for the roundtable. It's been awesome. And final thoughts. Bruce, would you like to go first?
Oh, that's a nice picture of me up in my new Skype profile picture of me and my dog out and about today in my Russian pimp suit, a.k.a. the Adidas tracksuit.
Yes, I saw that. It's like, what, you're selling crack now?
No, my neighbors love that tracksuit. They just love it. That's like our Manny up on this mountain.
Well, as long as you're comfortable.
Oh, dude, those gangsters, they got it down. There is nothing more comfortable in the world than a tracksuit.
Yes. Favorite band of mine called TISM, which stands for This Is Serious Mum. They have a line in one of their sort of poetry things, like a tracksuit which was never worn for sport. So
there you go.
Yeah, it's comfy like, and I've noticed if I'm not leaving the house, I'm still in PJs unless someone's coming around, and then all right, I'll put pants on. Viking, passing thoughts.
No, not today. I think we just kind of stitched it all together as best we can. Again, I just like to go back to the idea that this we're in a chrysalis, and it's best to just prepare for what's going to happen. We sure as hell aren't going to be able to figure it out. It's gonna unfold in ways beyond our perception.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I've accepted that too. That we're in a blind spot. There's a point where I'll use a Canadian metaphor, where a snow blizzard reaches a point where you're blind. You can't see 15 feet in front of you. We're in a blind spot now. Anybody claiming to predict the future, I think they're just full of shit. I don't care who they are, Simon Parks, whoever. The psychic channels are extremely unstable at the best of times, and in times like this, it's like trying to tune in a TV station on this mountain without cable. A little bit of snow, oh, I heard something there.
So crackle pop.
Yeah, so we're in a blind spot right now, and just it's faith that gets you through these things. It's just faith. That's all it is. It's faith. Good old faith.
So in other words, go into your heart, observe, be awesome because you are, and allow things to unfold. But that still means you defend yourself. And we're here to watch. That's sort of where we're at this point in time, is to programs are running, and we have to allow them to run out and see what actually happens instead of trying to influence.
It's like the most important aspect of this is you have to give yourself permission to start to believe what you're saying is true, because we've been so deeply programmed that we doubt ourselves. Just start trusting who you are and give yourself permission to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect spot to end it. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, boys. HiJacker, are you there? You're still on, but I don't know if he's fallen asleep or not. So no, not at the moment. So thank you, HiJacker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Viking. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, dear listener. As I said, remember you're awesome. Planet Collingwood will be back in 6 days and 22 hours. Not sure what's up next on Revolution Radio, but in about 2 hours, Kelsey Sweet is on with Cultivating Consciousness. So if you're still up for that, have a listen. She's quite good at it. And so, yes, I'll leave you with one thing. You are awesome, and mine's a pint. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.